Koikimedia, Koikimedia, we bring the world closer to your doorstep. Koikimedia, àwọn àgbẹ̀ tó lárugẹ ètò tó gbójú owó tí wọ́n máa ní nínú. Ẹgbẹ́ kúrú ọjà wà láyé gbogbo ayé jẹ ètò tó gbójú owó tí wọ́n máa ní. À ń gbé tó lárugẹ, à ń gbàgbà lárugẹ ètò tó gbójú owó tí wọ́n máa ní. User sport, Kemarigo, ètò tó gbójú owó. Ọmọ Ìjẹ̀bú alárẹ̀bí ló ní kí n máa dé dọ́dá Koikimedia ọ̀rọ̀ lágbàjúmọ̀ mi. Máa bá ṣe ẹ lọ́wọ́. Ọmọ Yorùbá nìyẹn, ọmọ Yorùbá àtàtà. Àgbádùn rẹ, ọmọdé bọ́lá rẹ̀ ni, ṣé ìyọmọ bìbí bọ̀ ọ̀bẹ mọ́lẹ̀. Ẹ̀yin lọmọ mi kò máa dé. Ẹ̀yin lọmọ mi kò máa wọ̀. Igbó gáwúrò lọ́jọ́ tí ó gbọ́dọ̀ wọ, àjòjì tó bá wọ bẹ̀ láìpẹ̀lẹ̀ lọ́bọ̀ra. Ẹ̀yin lọmọ mọ́wọ́ òyìnbó tó dé, ìgbà tó yìnbó dé, olùwàjẹ́ tó sọ̀tì o Koikimedia sábà ní bàbá. Koikimedia àwọn ní bàbá. Koikimedia àwọn ní bàbá. Àdáńtọ́ àtúnpèdègèdè. Àwọn là ń gbé tó lárugẹ gbégbá gbọgbọ́ o. Àtúnjàfẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ilẹ̀ wa fẹ́lọ ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Koikimedia àwọn ní bàbá. Ọmọ Òdùwà ni wá o. Kọ́kọ́kọ́kọ́. Koikimedia àwọn ní bàbá. Ikú tó ṣe bí lébi òsì. Àdìmú bàbá yọ. Koikimedia àwọn ní bàbá. Can we walk closer to your doorstep? Afẹ́fẹ́ tó ń fẹ́ràn tó ń kàn gbogbo lára ni. Àmì ìrègbèdè Olódùmarè ló fún wa sí. Gbogbo ayé ẹ̀gbọ́n, àwa ní bàbá o. Ẹ máa ń bọ̀ wá ẹgbẹ́ polówó ọjà ni wá o. Odùduwà la gbé dání, òtítọ́ la gbé dání. Sọ́dọ̀lẹ̀, a ti sẹ́rí pèntà. Àgbẹ̀tọ́, àgbẹ̀bẹ̀rẹ̀ gbẹ́tẹ́. Koikimedia, we bring you one closer to your doorstep. Koikimedia is around. us latest. Is around to give us latest. Ladies and gentlemen, ẹnu kalẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹgbẹ́ tí ẹ gbọ́ ètò tó gbódùn owó. Ladies and gentlemen, ẹnu kalẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹgbẹ́ tí ẹ gbọ́ ètò tó gbódùn owó. Koikimedia is around to give us latest. Koikimedia is around to give us latest. Orílẹ̀-èdè wa kàgbéga 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 fàlẹ́rì ìgbàgbọ́ wa nígbẹ́ láti bẹ̀rù lọ́gbọ́nmọ́ ká ṣiṣẹ́ ká jọba ìṣọ̀kan tó mìíràn níkẹjẹ́ ká máa lépa tẹ̀síwájú ọ̀pọ̀ ire àtọ́wọ́ tó dára ọmọ Olúwa dìde wọ́n sì pọ̀ ìtọ́rẹ́ ìwọ́n ní ìmọ̀lẹ̀ orúkọ adúláwọ̀ àwa ní ìmọ̀lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀. I think we should have about 60 minutes for this presentation. Hopefully it's not going to go longer than that. I say good evening and welcome once again to my live broadcast, the Yoruba Nation campaign, the Yoruba Nation awareness, and the Yoruba Nation discussion. This evening, I want us to ask a question, a pertinent question that millions of Nigerians should be asking, question that pertain to Yoruba people, the Biafra, the Arewa, the Ijo, and many others that also believe in the right to self-determination. This evening, as we are all aware that the President BOLA TINUBU is currently in Saudi Arabia, where they're having discussion about Israel and Palestinian. What is the take of Nigeria on that particular issue? And why is the government of Nigeria running away from the internal problem that has to do with self-determination? But they are quick to travel to outside the country and discuss about Palestinians having their own state and Israel having their own state. As we all know, there's a lot of crisis going on around the world. And one of the reasons why crises happen is because of the ancestral land of people. So this evening, I want to have a discussion, a conversation, to ask ourselves, why do the federal government of Nigeria are quick to support the Palestinian state, but they refuse to endorse and support a Biafra state and the Oduduwa and the Arewa? And what do you think should be our stand, especially the campaigners, those that believe in the right to self-determination, those that understand that self-determination is an inalienable right, and that right should be respected by the federal government of Nigeria? As we know, the Biafrans are campaigning to exit Nigeria. This campaign has taken around the world, but it seems that the federal government refused to travel to the world and tell the international community why a Biafra state is needed. Just about 4 years ago, the Yoruba campaign kickstarted as well under the leadership of Professor Adebanji Akintoye. And as we know, this campaign has taken many Yoruba people around the world to now find out that the real problem of Nigeria with us is that we need our own permanent state. But as we know, the previous administration of President Buhari refused to say exactly what we wanted him to tell the international community. Rather, while Buhari was in office, he was campaigning for a two-state solution to the Israel and
Palestinian issue. So this evening, we want to review quickly why we need to have this discussion tonight. It's because, as we know, Nigeria is currently at the stage of where a lot of things can happen if care is not taken. And this is why we are telling many Nigerians that as long as your government continue to go outside and support, endorse countries that are meant to have their own states, and they refuse to say to those in Nigeria that you also have the right to self-determination, what that is going to happen is there will be more problem, because those that wants to go will kickstart what will be needed for them to exit. Under the leadership of Professor Adebanjo Akintoye, the Yoruba self-determination movement has been a very important key. And what do we mean by that? For the last 4 years, it has been a campaign of peace. It has been a campaign of discussion. It has been a campaign of awareness. It has been a campaign that we want to tell the world that we want to leave Nigeria, but we don't want to create crisis in Nigeria. But as we know, President Bola TINUBU was also written in April 17 this year to tell him to have a discussion with us so that we can have our own state, our own independent autonomous country, just as President Bola TINUBU is asking the world to listen and allow Palestinians to have its own country. But yet, President Bola TINUBU refused to endorse and accept that the Yoruba people also want to leave. The question is, how do we then exit Nigeria? Do we end up fighting each other, and other countries will be telling President Bola TINUBU to allow the Yoruba people and the Biafra, the Ijaw, and the Arewa to exit Nigeria? Must it get to that stage before the world, the international community, will be advising the same president that is advising the world to accept and allow, the Palestinians to have their own independent country? So this evening, I want us to listen to how Shetima, the current president, the vice president rather, spoke during the United Nations just concluded summit, as he was telling the world to accept and allow the international community for a two-state solution to the ongoing crisis between Israel and Palestinians. Let's listen to him.
We are all witnesses to the heart-wrenching situation in Gaza and other Palestinian territories. We cannot discuss war and peace, conflicts and resolution, or humanitarian imperatives today without reflecting on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that has been raging since 7 August last year. Of course, the conflict predates this period and has been simmering for a better part of half a century. What this tells us is that the international community has failed to live up to the spirit and aspirations of the United Nations to rid the world of inequality, violence, and domination of one people by another. Justice is antithetical to revenge. Freedom is an inalienable right and a natural entitlement that cannot be denied to any people. The Palestinian people deserve their independence. They deserve to have a home of their own in territories already recognized by this very assembly and by international law, which is being routinely ignored. Nigeria continues to urge efforts to bring back on track a two-state solution that offers the prospect for a new beginning for the region. Nigeria reaffirms to supporting United Nations peacekeeping operations. We recognize the need for Africa to build strong and professional armies to meet the multiple challenges we face. Consequently, we reiterate the call for international support to operationalize the African standby force, in addition to the provision of requisite support and resources to ensure the upgrade, take-up, and effectiveness.
Let's listen to it one more time. This is the current Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, traveling to the United Nations, this last United Nations, this one, and advising the international community in the gathering to accept a two-state solution. Because why? Self-determination is an inalienable right, and that right must be respected to allow the Palestinians to have their own country. The question then is, should the Biafra prepare for their declaration on December 2nd or whenever they are ready to exit? Would the vice president be against that? And if the vice president, Shetima, refused to accept that the Biafra should have their own country, as Nigerians listening to this, what do you expect the Biafra to do? Put that in your right hand and don't use it to eat Eba. For the Yoruba as well, that are against the right to self-determination, after listening to the vice president, should the Yoruba also, in the near future, or the today, tomorrow, or next month, under the leadership of Professor Banji Akintoye, declare a Yoruba country? What is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu going to say? These are the questions that we should be discussing, because as we know, and as many people have said so many times, that Nigeria is only sitting on the keg of gunpowder that wants to explode. And these are the, like somebody just said there, the hypocrite of this government to travel quickly to the world and begging them to accept and allow the world to accept and endorse Palestinian. I have no problem for a Palestinian state, but I would have problem if the Vice President and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu refuse to endorse a Biafra state and a Oduduwa Republic and the Arewa Republic, because it is the right time now that we should not be talking about 2027, because no 2027 will exist if three people, at least the two major ones, the Biafra and the Oduduwa, are requesting the exit out of Nigeria. What would happen if this government refused to accept such? What do you think that they should do? Do you think that they should bring weapons out and start fighting the military? Do you think that they should start destabilizing and creating anarchy? That is not the best option on the table. That shouldn't be the reason that we should kill each other. But it seems that as millions of people are watching how Israel continue to bombard for the argument's sake that they are doing what they call self-defense. Let's quickly give you up to date what Tinubu said in the Riyadh in Saudi Arabia at the ongoing Saudi Islamic, whatever you want to call it, summit that is currently taking place. And this is coming from the ex-Andu official of Abat, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, also known as Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, GCFR. This is what he has to say, and I want you to listen to this. In the rules based on international order, states have the right of self-defense, but self-defense must take proportionality into account in line with the global legal diplomatic framework. Today, which was yesterday in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, I, President Bola Tinubu, addressed the fellow world leaders on the issues surrounding the prolonged Israel-Palestinian conflict. I want you to hold on to that. Tinubu is avoiding the issue with Nnamdi Kanu that Buhari, the evil Fulani man, kidnapped from Kenya, rendition back to Nigeria, handed everything to Bola Tinubu. Tinubu is not talking about the case of Nnamdi Kanu that is pending on his neck, but he can travel how many hours to Riyadh to talk about, self-defense, talk about, proportionality into taking account to the global legal. The same federal government that refused to talk about the legal consequences of why Nnamdi Kanu was not given the opportunity to justice before he was moved out of Kenya. We know that what took place under Buhari and another fraudster that called himself a Yoruba man that is the vice president, you would expect that Yemi Osibajo, another criminal, should understand that he is a legal practitioner known as the senior advocate of Nigeria. But these are criminals that accepted the fact that Nnamdi Kanu asking for the same thing that the Palestinians are asking for, was rather than try in Kenya for whatever reason that the government believed for treasonable offense, but he was kidnapped in the middle of the day and rendition back. And we have a Pastor Ruga known as Yemi Osibajo, a Christian man, a pastor, and also a lawyer, that should advise Buhari that what you did during Umaru Diko in the 80s cannot be done in 21st century. But because they are all set of criminals, and because they ate the Igbos, just like Shomure said yesterday in his program that everyone has watched. The Igbos, as we know, wants to pull out of Nigeria because we have seen that the British continue to use force as it was done during the Biafra War. We'll come back to that because while we are preparing many Nigerians is because if the Biafra decide to go heavy with the military, do not cry out against them, because already Bola Tinubu is saying that there's what they call the rules based on international order. So Simon Ekpa, the Prime Minister government in exile of the Biafra, have the right also to do what Tinubu is saying by defending the Biafra state against the terrorist government called Nigeria Federal Government. These are the discussions we should be talking. Nothing else, but if we refuse to discuss these, every Nigerian should start preparing for the consequences of your government. You will not hold the Biafra or the Yoruba accountable, but we will make sure that Tinubu spend the rest of his life at the International Criminal Court, just as Yugoslavia former Prime Minister or President died. Because he refused to listen when they were telling him that Yugoslavia was already due to be going their separate ways. He did not want that. We saw the end of Gorbachev. We will see the hand of Tinubu in the International Criminal Court, and if he does not even die while he's waiting for trial. So we are telling Tinubu that he has what it takes as the sitting president to call everyone on the round table, not in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, with the United Nations, European Union, African Union, and discuss this self-determination that is taken to Riyadh. If not, Simon Ekpa's government has whatever it takes to defend its territory against the federal government terrorist army that wants to invade their land, just as the Palestinians believe, quote and unquote, that Israel is invading their land and they are fighting back. We are not here to defend or accept whatever is happening there. My concern is about what is happening in Nigeria that Tinubu refused to discuss. Let's go back to the communique that came from Tinubu himself from Saudi Arabia yesterday. In a rules based on international order, the state have the right of self-defense. I want you to hold on to that. So what Simon Ekpa is preparing for is known as self-defense. He will defend himself against the military invasion on their territory, and they have the right to use full ammunition of weapons to report and defend their innocent mothers, widows, children against the terrorists, because we know already that the terrorists continue to increase their firepower. They are even paying 1 million naira to anyone that would like to join the terrorists. But the Biafra are not terrorists, but they are defending themselves, as Bola Tinubu is advising in Riyadh. Have the right to self-defense, but what we understand that self-defense must take proportionality. So when the time comes between the fight of the federal government and the Biafra or the Yoruba, because the time will come that the Yoruba would also have to be harmed to the teeth to defend that territory. The Yoruba will not have no choice to carry weapons to defend their territory, and we hope that Bola Tinubu will be proportionate in his attack to the people that are defending that territory. I hope you're understanding what is about to play out. So it's good that Tinubu is pushing this now, because we will be able to remind him that this is exactly what you said in Saudi Arabia on the 11th of November, 2024, just for record purpose. Let's continue. So today, as he said in Riyadh, I address the fellow world leaders on issues surrounding the prolonged Israel-Palestinian conflict. I reiterate Nigeria's historical support for two-state solution. So the argument of this government and the previous government is that they will continue to support a Palestinian state, but they are refusing to support a Biafra state and an Oduduwa state because we are waiting for the king to accept it. We are not going to wait for any king. We will make sure that we will harm ourselves to the teeth to defend that territory against the invaders, who would then be the federal government when the right time approached. But the right time has approached for the Biafra, as we all have been saying, Simon Ekpa, the government that has needed more weapons. And we hope the international community will give the Biafra enough weapons. I am begging the Biafra to please continue to get enough weapons, because we will not allow terrorist military Nigeria to kill them. And I'm using this opportunity to speak directly, especially to Donald Trump, to please continue to look into the injustice, the marginalization, the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, mostly within the north and likewise in the southeast and the southwest. The ethnic cleansing of the Christians, because those that should be speaking, because of their contract, because of their branches, refuse to speak. So I hope that the new administration of Donald Trump will look into the issue and probably maybe give enough weapon to the as they're giving weapons to the Israel, the Biafra will need weapons as well to protect themselves. And I hope the world will not look back and think that if the situation of what played out when the British was fighting the Biafra, this time around the game is changing over. We will not accept as Yoruba that the government will continue to attack the Biafra. Should the government attack the Biafra, we would also call for a defense to support the Biafra when that time comes. We will make sure that we put everything in mechanism, from the media to everybody on the ground, to support the Biafra when the federal government attacks them. If the federal government attacks the Biafra, we have every right to protect them and defend them inside their territory and outside their territory. We will make sure we do that. So be warned that if the federal government attacked the Biafra, we would have no choice to defend and support the Biafra against invaders, because that is what is called invaders. So let us all prepare for what is about to happen. We will support the Biafra if the government attack them. If the government use weapons to attack them, we will carry arms to also protect the Biafra against the attackers. Listen to this very well. If the federal government attack the Biafra, we would have no choice to be harmed to the teeth and go around in there and protect them, because we would not allow what the British did in 1967 anymore again in the territory. We will make sure that we've sent people down there to fight, just as we know when the fight of the Ukraine started, they were asking for support. So the Biafra government, be rest assured that Koikimedia will continue to tell the international community that you need enough weapons to protect yourself as your declaration is getting closer. Let's go back quickly, because we only have about 60 minutes to this program. As we know, Nigeria's historical support for a two-state solution, which is a vision grounded in the principles of quality and mutual recognition. The federal government is talking about recognition, but they refuse to talk about recognition of the Yorubas and the Biafra that wants to exit Nigeria peacefully. And I mean both wants to go peacefully if the government accepts a peaceful exit. If the North do not want to go, they have the right to keep the entity called Nigeria that British created. But those that do not want to keep that entity will defend themselves with weapons, the media, and the publicity, and even the propaganda. I also call upon the world leaders to work towards exploring a new path to peace and bringing an immediate end to this conflict. There is no conflict yet in Nigeria, but we are telling President Bola Ahmed TINUBU that if you allow any conflict in Nigeria you will be held responsible, accountable for the death of innocent Nigerians that are indigenous people that wants to take back their ancestral land. If the death of anyone from the Yoruba to the, already there's a lot of death going on in Nigeria. There's many people that have been massacred. There's many people that have been killed that this government refused to support to make sure that people can defend themselves and be harmed to protect themselves from the invaders that are coming into our territory because the borders has been let open by Buhari during his tenure. As representative of nations that value justice, dignity, and sanity of human life, Bola Tinubu is talking about human lives. But Bola Tinubu played what we called politics during the Owo massacre. He continued to play politics with the lives of millions of Nigerians. But I hope Nigerians will understand that there is no more politics. Everybody should be demanding a full, total exit. If not, we could end up in a situation that you must prepare your mind and soul for it. We have a moral obligation to collectively bring about an immediate end to conflict, which has persisted for far too long and inflicted immeasurable suffering on countless lives. I'm sure he's talking to the Biafrans, because the injustice against the Igbos, the injustice that has taken place in the country, that they will not be given opportunity to become a president, and their exit now is paramount. There will be a declaration. They will defend themselves. If the federal government attack them, the Yoruba will attack back to make sure that the Biafra are protected. Nigerian own experience and domestically and regionally. He's talking about domestically. I don't think Tinubu understands what he's talking about. Maybe this was written to him. He cannot process it. He's talking about Nigerians' own experiences domestically and regionally. Let's talk about the regional. Niger has been left open. The influx of Fulani terrorists from the Sahel has meant that your life has become very difficult as a Yoruba man or Yoruba woman. And this is the reason why we are saying to President Tinubu, okay, that we are saying to him, for the purpose of peace, for the purpose of justice, for the purpose of humanity, time is ticking. For every day Tinubu refused to talk about the self-determination campaigners that are preparing their ground to exit Nigeria, they must also be preparing for conflict. Tinubu must prepare for conflict against those two regions that want to exit. And let me put this warning to our kings. When the right time comes, in December 2nd, if any kings dare try to play any pranky with the minds of millions of Yoruba people, we will refuse to listen to you. Because we know what the game is going to be. They are going to start their publicity campaign, as I've been told, to tell the Yoruba not to get involved in the Biafra fight. We will make sure that we are fully involved. This is not 1967 that the British told everyone lies. The Yoruba will be involved in the war to protect and make sure that the millions of the Biafrans will not be massacred and killed as the Nigeria-British war took 5 million lives. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with the Biafra. If you as a Yoruba man or woman watching me and you dare say anything against these, you can go to the nearest river and kill yourself. Don't bastard. Nigeria's own experience domestically and regionally have taught us that identity politics are no substitute for respecting the nuisance of diversity. The international community therefore has the opportunity to bring a new thinking to the bear on this most relentless challenge. We need to find a new pathway to peace. Tinubu is talking about peace when Nigeria does not have peace as we speak tonight. You can live in denial in your house. You can live in denial that there is peace in Nigeria. Everybody knows the end game. The war is looming. We are still trying to make sure that there will be no war in Nigeria, but put it at the back of your mind that this government is pushing for war if they're not going to speak to the Biafra and they're not going to speak to the Yoruba that are campaigning. Let me put this again to President Bola Tinubu. Time is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. Let's listen one more time to what Shetima said at the United Nations General Assembly.
Today, we are all witnesses to the heart-wrenching situation in Gaza and other Palestinian territories. We cannot discuss war and peace, conflicts and resolution, or humanitarian imperatives today without reflecting on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that has been raging since 7 August last year. Of course, the conflict predates this period and has been simmering for a better part of half a century. What this tells us is that the international community has failed to live up to the spirit and aspirations of the United Nations to rid the world of inequality, violence, and domination of one people by another. Justice is antithetical to revenge. Freedom is an inalienable right and a natural entitlement that cannot be denied to any people. The Palestinian people deserve their independence. They deserve to have a home of their own in territories already recognized by this very assembly and by international law, which is being routinely ignored. Nigeria continues to urge efforts to bring back on track the two-state solution that offers the prospect for a new beginning for the region. Nigeria reaffirms to supporting United Nations peacekeeping operations. We recognize the need for Africa to build strong and professional armies to meet the multiple challenges we face. Consequently, we reiterate the call for international support to operationalize the African Standby Force, in addition to the provision of requisite support and resources to ensure the upgrade, take-up, and effectiveness.
And that is 2 minutes. And that is how far we can take you this evening. What you've listened to is the Biafra message, the Yoruba message, that self-determination will remain an inalienable right, and we hope that this government will look into it as well. And I'm sure some of you remember this. It will be more than this when the time comes. Before we finally finish, not this one yet, just quickly give you this before we go. Just a summary about Intati Solatenkan. Òun ni pé Bola Tinubu, ìyẹn president, ó lọ sí Riyadh ní Saudi Arabia. Ó lọ ń bẹ̀bẹ̀ pé kó jọ̀ọ́ kó jẹ́ káwọn Palestinian kó ní ìlú tiwọn kó dá dúró. Àwa ń bi bàbá wa Bola Tinubu pé kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ sí èyí tó ń bẹ ní ìsàlẹ̀ ilé ẹ̀ nígbà táwọn ọmọ Biafra sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ lọ, àwọn Yorùbá náà fẹ́ lọ lábẹ́ bàbá wa Professor Adébánjí Akíntóyè àti Chief Dr. Sunday Igboho àti gbogbo àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá. Àmọ́ kàkà kí wọ́n jẹ́ kájọ yanjú ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ní tùbítùbí, ṣe ni wọ́n ń sọ pé kí ló máa ṣẹlẹ̀. Mo wá ń jẹ́ kó yé bàbá wa Bọ́lá Tinubu pé tó bá attack àwọn Biafra ní December 2nd, àwa Yorùbá kan máa protect àwọn Biafra yẹn against the federal government when that time comes in December. Mo wá ń bẹ gbogbo àgbáyé pátápátá kó jọ̀ọ́ kó dákun kó bá wa kó èròjà tó pọ̀ rẹpẹtẹ fáwọn Biafra láti lè fi protect ìlú wọn nígbà tó bá máa ṣe declaration. Wọ́n á fi àsìkò yìí rán wa létí pé Shetima náà lọ sí United Nations, ṣe ló lọ ń bẹ̀bẹ̀ fún Palestinian, àmọ́ ní ẹnu ọ̀nà wọn wọ́n bẹ̀bẹ̀ pé kí Yorùbá kó dá dúró, kí Haúsá kó dá dúró, kí gbogbo wa máa lọ nílọ. Mo wá ń jẹ́ kó yé gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá pé eléyìí ń ṣe 1967 táwọn British parọ́ fún gbogbo wa tó fi di pé wọ́n pa 5 million Biafran people. Àsìkò yẹn ò ní ṣẹlẹ̀ mọ́ ní 21st century táwa wà láyé yìí. A ti mọ̀ pé irọ́ ni Britico tó ń pè ní Britain pẹ̀lú àwọn ọba wọn àti gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì wọn tó fi kógun lọ sí Biafra. Eléyìí tó máa ṣẹlẹ̀, a máa make sure pé àgbáyé máa gbọ́ sí i. Mo á ń sọ fún bàbá wa tó ṣẹ̀ wọlé Donald Trump kó bá wa fi Google ẹ̀ kó bá wa fi wo gbogbo tó ń lọ nínú Nàìjíríà, nítorí pé pípa àwọn Kristẹni ṣe ló ń pọ̀ sí i. Kódà El-Rufai sọ pé Christian kankan ní jẹ́ gọ́vùnà ìyẹn ní Kaduna. Gbogbo ń ta ti sọ láti bí wákàtí díẹ̀ nìyẹn. Mo kí gbogbo wa o, ẹ jẹ́ ká tún pàdé nígbà míì lórí ìkànnì yìí ló ń pè ní Koikimedia. Ìkànnì àlàáfíà ni o, ìkànnì tó ń mú ohun tó gbọ́dọ̀ jáde nípa Yorùbá nation. Tó o bá ti mọ̀ nípa Yorùbá nation, pè wá pé mídíà kan kó béèrè pé kí ló ń ṣe nínú Yorùbá nation. Òun ló ń pè ní self determination. Ire o.
It's a